Hi, my name is Metrik. I'm a vocalist, producer and DJ from London, and I'm here with Dolby to present my album Awake, which is released on the 13th of November. So I guess I've always had an obsession with music from a very, very early age. I was in bands and I used to play guitar and write songs. I didn't sing them, my friend did that. But then in my sort of mid-teenage years, I've got really into electronic music and became very obsessed with dance music and particularly drum and bass just caught my attention. And alongside that, I've always had a very keen interest in computers and technology. And yeah, shall I pause it? Cool. So I've always had a very keen interest in computers and technology. So naturally I gravitated towards drum and bass as a genre because it's really, at least in my opinion, always at the cutting edge of sound design. And over the years, I've sort of introduced sort of more of myself into my music, where I've been writing my own songs and recording my own vocals and tracking guitars and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think I've arrived at a place which I really feel good about with my sound, and yeah. Yeah, I think there's like two answers to that question. Firstly, I think there's like so many different methods and jumping off points to make the music. Often I'll sit behind the keys and just start noodling around with like melody ideas or chords, and then maybe some vocals will come to me, or I'll just like jam on my guitar for like, I'll just put the recording on for like an hour and just kind of jam and see what happens. So yeah, there are certain like methods that I use to kind of get into that zone. But then I find some tracks just sort of happen in quite a like, weird and surreal way. For example, my track Gravity, I was driving to the airport one day and the melody just like popped into my head, like the whole thing. I don't know where it came from. And yeah, so I'd love to say like I have a really like, reliable method to make music, but I'd say often it's very random and good luck. Yeah, hugely. I mean, I think the best way to channel ideas is through the instrument that I'm most comfortable with, and that is definitely the guitar. But yeah, I mean, I've also got to pay a huge amount of respect to all of the artists that I'm inspired by, from rock music, metal, dance music, drum and bass, from cinema, like across the board. Like I've got a very broad listening taste, and everything that I love to listen to has found its way into my music in one way or another. So back then it was an incredibly exciting opportunity and technology to be involved with. Really, any way that can sort of shift the paradigm when it comes to making music, it's immediately got my attention. And yeah, I think it's evolved from something which, at least for me, was more experimental. Like, what if I could do this? Or, there's lots of like expanding elements to it, which you just simply can't do in a stereo mix. So yeah, I think back then there was a lot of like, fun kind of trial and error, and but also working in the context that what would this sound like in a club, and then obviously you're subject to all of the acoustic sort of differences that each club may have, and but I think the difference now is that there's more of a sort of firstly, so many more people can hear it. It's on a kind of consumer level. It's in everybody's phones more or less now, and sound bars and it's kind of almost more like it's a given that you have to do an Atmos mix, because it's just a way to experience the music. As an artist, you can be so much more creative and really scale your mixes up to a size that you previously couldn't before. Yeah, so once I'd finished the main stereo mixes of the album, I sat down with Miles in Soho, who, he sort of got me set up in the studio there at the Dolby Studios, and he left me alone for a couple of days, and I kind of decided like where I wanted to put things. And then he sort of assisted me in getting the mixes like over the line, and a lot of the more like granular details he would sort of jump in and do that, because there's a lot more going on under the hood than I had expected when it comes. It's like a whole new sort of technical area. I think like when you're the sole driver of a project, an album which you've lived with day in, day out for 4 years, you become very sort of almost desensitized to a lot of the sounds in the mix. And I think when I heard it in Atmos for the first time, I was rediscovering things in my track that I'd previously overlooked. And I think there are sounds that I would have included in the production, which I really wish I could have that louder, but I can't because there's other stuff going on, and I've only got 2 speakers here to play with. Yet in Atmos, it's like I can give a whole speaker to that sound if I want to. So you can really. It was. I'd say, just to answer your original question, it was a more of a cinematic experience. As a big film and cinema lover, it takes on a much more cinematic aesthetic. So. Absolutely. I think the impact that it will have from a technical standpoint is knowing that I have extra creative license in the mix. But then also in terms of sound design, it's like thinking what sound would look cool what sound would sound cool in Atmos. I'm really interested in the idea of just starting a mix or starting a track from scratch in an Atmos environment, because then that would completely inform all of the creative decisions that you make. So that's massively exciting for me. Yeah, so after the release of my album, I'm going to be touring quite extensively across Europe, United States, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and I'm really looking forward to like getting the album out there and in front of people. In basically going to be on tour a lot after the release of the album, and going to be doing a really cool like listening party at the Dolby Cinema in Soho, which is just the most incredible sounding and looking cinema I think I've ever been in. So yeah, super excited for all of that. So.